Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to In the Zone. Pete Coles, Rich Sutter, the dynamic duo of the hoop world. Pete, I thought I was going crazy last week, but it's really, really off the rails.
Worse.
Everything's gone off the rails, Pete. But I did want to start the show today. A little bit of a rainy day out here. Folks, we're on episode number 108. 108 shows. Really, really something significant, fabulous. We, again, start off with our usual mea culpa to our fans who watch, who tune in, the zoners. We appreciate you and really, really thank you for tuning in and making this something worthwhile. Pete, I'm going to start off before we jump into Pete's Corner, though. I've got in my hands here the Penny Saver. Okay, local paper that's free. I love it. One of the reasons I like it so much is because it has a crossword puzzle in there, and I'm a crossword puzzle crazy person. So I'm not good enough to do the New York Times one, but the Penny Saver one is challenging and pretty good. But what I wanted to start off with was we do our show here every week in what's called the WTA, the Westfield Technical Academy. And so I'm picking up my weekly edition as I stop in. I get the lottery tickets for me and Pete, which we haven't won yet. We're still fighting on, but we get lottery tickets, we get ginger ale, and every week I pick up the Penny Saver on Thursday because that's the day it comes out.
Yep.
All right, but on the front of the Penny Saver as I'm driving in, it says WTA students shine at Skills USA Championship.
Yep.
And Pete, did this place bring home the hardware?
One of them just walked out.
We just got some amazing hardware brought home by this crew. I'm going to read their names off so we give them a little bit of shout out. I guess one of them just walked out, Pete?
Yeah, the kid that was in here, Brady.
We should have held him over. Wyatt Lee, Brady LePage, Nolan Lukasik, and Luke Faith Foley. Fellas, unbelievable. Shout out from In the Zone. We love golds.
Hey,
We love silvers.
Brady's a back-to-back at Nationals. Last year he won. He won Nationals last year.
You got to love it. Westfield.
So he's going for a double.
Hey, it's also prom season. These guys are going to have no trouble finding dates after this, baby. They got to get it with the gold and the silver they brought home. Unbelievable. And we're excited for them. I heard there's some Nationals here as well. Going to move
next
on.
Step. Yep.
All right. I love it, Pete. I love it. I love picking up the Penny Saver and seeing local stuff like that. Westfield Community Forum, Westfield people in general have been great supporters of our show, but I've been here 28 years now, and this has been home for us, and it's just a great community, great people,
Absolutely.
And it's got great vibration to it. Pete, let's go to Pete's Corner. Let's shoot.
All right.
1, 2, 3.
All right, commencements have happened in the college ranks. What do coaches do after the students are gone for the summer?
Okay. Great question. There isn't much of a summer anymore. A lot of the players will be returning to school to attend summer school, to attend individual workouts with the assistant coaches. I'm assuming maybe some of the head coaches might be involved in that. They're supposed to be small group workouts, but basically they're allowed to practice at different times too. So the year really, really doesn't get shut down. But also, what I went through the past weekend, I can give the folks a little bit of an inclination to that. The NCAA declares what's called live periods for the Division I and Division II coaches to go out. Division III has no live period. We get to go out anytime we want. So the good thing of it is for the live periods, there's some really good tournaments during that time. So the last weekend, they had a live period, went out to Fitchburg, saw some teams, a massive amount of teams out there. Great competition, but that's what's happening now is the next cycle for 2026. You know, most people have 2025 concluded right now with their recruiting class. May 1st is generally the deposit date. So you want to get all your people into that date if you can. Some people like to work a little later because everybody's holding out right now with the portal and all this other stuff. This is the piece of it that people really aren't seeing and getting, and I'm seeing the heartbreak in some of these families' faces when they're getting absolutely no looks from college coaches that have scholarships or NIL deals for them. And part of the reason of that is because a lot of these lawsuits are creating a glut. People want to stick around forever and say, oh, now this is my job. You know, I get to stay here. It's restraint of trade. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Zakai Ziegler from Tennessee is suing so that he can stick around. He had his 4 years at Tennessee, and he wants to stick around. And probably the reason he wants to stick around is because Zakai Ziegler is not going to get drafted most likely. most likely doesn't end up in the NBA, and probably made his biggest dollar that he's ever going to make in basketball at the University of Tennessee. Now, is that restraint of trade? It is for the young guys that aren't getting the opportunity. I can assure you that.
Yep.
He's had opportunity, and he's had a chance to do that. Now, is this his best year of earning opportunity? No, you had 4 years. Those are the rules. Now you're suing to upset those rules, but at that time, nobody, and I swear to God, nobody looks at this anymore. Nobody looks down at the people that are absolutely being affected by this. Nobody's looking at the young kids who are in high school who can't get anybody to look at them. You're gonna overflow junior colleges now because they want to go to junior college because they can go there for 3 years. It doesn't count if you go Division I. Guess what, folks? It does count if you don't. And so that's a gamble you're willing to take. I understand that. But this incessant, many bites at the apple where we're going to go to 4 years of high school, we're going to go to prep school, we'll reclassify and stay in prep school another year. That's why some of these guys are 24 and 25 years old. And I don't think people like it. You know,
no, because they're not going to college for college anymore.
But that's what's happening now is that this thing doesn't stop. It's a behemoth. It's a beast, and it has very, very little downtime to it. Right now, they're talking about NBA Combine, talking about upcoming draft. After that, they'll go into the open season for July recruiting, where all the great players are now emerging in the class of 2026. It has no stop to it now, Pete. It has no beat. There is no downtime for coaches because, as I alluded to before on some of our shows, and I talked about this with some of our other people that are in the game with me and some of the people that I talk to regularly, this is a new thing for college coaches because a lot of college coaches, you have to kind of separate it a little bit, all right? College coaches on the lower level don't get the same contracts that coaches on the big level do. The coaches on the big level will agree to do 5, 7 appearances that they're required to do. Okay, you got to go to homecoming. You got to show up at reunion. Whatever those things might be. You know, you're going to speak to the class of 52 who's having their 50th reunion this year. Whatever those things might be, they're clearly delineated in the coach's contract. You're going to make these things.
Yep.
On the other side of it, the lower level, you don't have a whole lot of that attachment. It's one of the things that one of my friends who jumped up from a lower level to a higher level said was the time constraint on the amount of constraint on his time was so much different at the high level one because there were these things that I had to do. The lower level, I don't have to do them. But when you get into these things of now the higher level stuff, some of these things are probably now going to be put into the coach's contract. But what both of those coaches now have encumbered, high level, low level, mid level, is a whole new set of responsibilities that are now around fundraising or foundation efforts in order to augment your NIL. They have to be in on it now. And the ones that are really smart and good at it, they're benefiting because they're hustling and they're going out and finding those new dollars everywhere they can. It's reprehensible to most people. But in that situation where you are right now, if you're in that bubble, if you're in that circle, you just had a whole new set of stuff dumped onto your plate, and you can handle it if you want to, and you can and not handle it if you want to. But there'll be other people with a whole lot more money than you to dispense to recruits. And the way things are going right now, that's going to create winners and losers. That's going to separate winners and losers is your bank, your bag, how much you got. That's what's going to separate it. Great question, though, Pete. For the Division I coaches, right now with all of that stuff heaped up and the portal still going and them trying to fill out roster spots and do all this other stuff, let me give you another thing. Years ago, you would recruit 4 players. Now at my alma mater or some of these other mid-major schools, they're looking at bringing in 10 guys a year because everybody's gone.
Yeah, they leave, yeah.
Right. Bring in a new coach, the entire roster is gone. And so that's not normal either. Normally, you're recruiting 4 players. Now you're recruiting 12. That's increased your workload again there. So there's all these different constraints that people are going to be feeling that are nestled, and then there's going to be that whole level of scrutiny that I'm talking about where people are going to start to go, and especially the people who are actually putting their money into this, They're people who are used to success. They're used to winning. And they're going to be looking at, we paid $1.5 million for this guy and wound up in last place in our conference. Do you think that'll help? Do you think that'll help fundraising? Do you think that's going to hurt it? I think it's going to put a whole lot more coaches on the plank.
Yeah, right.
Personally,
sure.
to me,
Yeah,
it's what you're going to get. You're going to get a whole lot more guys under constraints, and now people are going to know. In the old days, when they dropped the bag, nobody really knew. They knew, but they didn't know. Nobody went to the IRS. Nobody had to claim it on their W-2s. It was just money that was passed under the table, generally in cash or some other assets, cars, other things that were available. There's one school back in the day when the VCR first came out. Nobody had VCRs. So they went and bought a whole bunch of VCRs. And every time they went into a really big recruit's house, they showed them a video on the VCR and then forgot to take the VCR with them.
Oops.
Just little stuff like that, which goes all the way to bagging up big pictures of the president, wrapping it up in a brown paper bag and stuffing it in somebody's suitcase as they're getting ready to leave on their visit. It's amazing. It's amazing. I've seen things in this business that are really, really unbelievable. I know that there were bags dropped that went unrequited. Let me explain that one to you. The guys went in,
get 'em, yeah.
They dropped the bag, and when it came time to sign the kid, he signed with somebody else. And when anybody said anything about it, the reply was, who are they going to tell?
Yeah, right.
What are they going to do? And the bag then became, no, you dropped the bag just to get a look at the kid. You dropped the bag just to get involved with the kid. You dropped the bag just to be one of the 5 official visits.
That's the players knowing the game.
That's a pro right there.
Yeah,
that's a
right.
pro right there. I don't even want to mention who he was, but it's one of those things where, I know a lot, and a lot of us just keep our mouths closed about it because it won't do any good.
No.
It's already gone. It's water under the bridge, but it's going on now on steroids.
Well, but now it's all out front.
Now it's going on steroids.
You can't hide it.
Yeah, and the scrutiny that's going to come from that is going to take a whole lot more coaches onto the unemployment line. They're going to say, we have the biggest budget in the entire league. Look what happened at Indiana. Their budget, their NIL budget was massive. They brought in a bunch of high-level portal guys that everybody wanted. They signed them, they paid them, and they were terrible. Hence, we need a new coach. What happened there? They brought in a new coach. The guy went from West Virginia, had been at West Virginia for 1 year, came out, transfers with his son, and goes to Indiana 1 year. Not one player left in the program.
Yep.
Not one player left in the program. Unbelievable. Pete, question 2. That was a great
All
one.
right,
That was a
question
real
number
good
2.
one.
We just saw the NBA combine, but you alluded on this live period. Is that essentially a high school combine to get into the NCAA? And is that further the notion that the NCAA is now a professional league?
Okay, think combine all over the country.
Right.
That's exactly what it is. It's combine all over the country. Now, here's what they don't want to tell you about those combines. Most of those kids that are on those AAU teams are the payers, not the players. All right, they're the payers. They're the ones who are paying the money. Their parents don't mind flying all over the country to watch their son go to tournaments. They don't mind paying $100 to park, $200 to get into the tournament. They don't mind that. There's a whole constituency of 90% of AAU is made up of payers. Mm-hmm. And then you have 10% of the people that everybody's there to watch. And they're the players. Everybody's there to watch them. They generally don't pay. All of their trips are free. They get taken all over the country. If they're numbered anywhere from 1 to 100, you're being taken everywhere in the country gratis, while all of those other people are paying for you. It's the same setup that a prep school has.
Right, and AAU is a big business.
It's a monster business right now.
Not only in basketball,
Monster
but in
business.
football, and baseball, and softball. AAU is a big business.
Pete, I go into a tournament now, okay? No cash anymore. You just take out your card and you register on. Everything's done online.
Yep.
Okay. I go to a tournament the other day. Again, I'm going to remain nameless with these guys, but it's $125 for me to go in. $125 to spend the afternoon watching 40 teams all over the place, have their rosters. But I went home without even a phone number.
Wow.
I'll have to look even further. Maybe they're in there somewhere on this crazy website that they sent me to. They might be in there, but to be honest with you, it's big business. Big business. And it's more business than you think. It's 90% business. There's 10% of people out there being recruited. Everybody else thinks they're going to be recruited. Let me just give you one other thing. I'll throw this out to the parents, all right? Because it might help you budget. It might help those parents that don't have unlimited resources make a serious, significant budget that might help your young man, and it might get him some exposure, all right? Listen to when the live periods are open. There are 2 days here, 2 days there, another 2 days. Those are when you want to attend those tournaments. All of these other tournaments that don't happen during live periods, you will only have Division III non-scholarship, non-NIL schools in the gym. Okay? I'm going to go back and say it again. If it's not a live period event, you will not have scholarship coaches in the gym. If your son is going to all of these events that occur, or your daughter is going to all of these events that occur outside of the live period, they'll only be seen, if by anybody, Division III coaches during that time, because they're the only ones that have the open calendar. Everybody else is on a strict open date calendar. They have some other flexibility during the school year that they can move around. But in order to get seen in the summer, if you're not being played in those tournaments that are live period tournaments, that's going to be rough, because you're not going to get seen. You won't get seen, and you'll be spending tremendous amounts of money making somebody else's day rich. All right, Pete, another good one. Want to roll?
Final one. NBA. What UFO come down and transported out the Knicks and put in this Knicks team that we're seeing in the playoffs?
Wow. Up until the last 2 minutes of the game. Up until the last 2 minutes of last night's game. The Knicks
were teleported in, man.
Yeah, they're playing very gritty. The Garden's excited. Nothing's as good as that in basketball. When the Madison Square Garden or Boston Garden, any of those real great historic places with the great traditions, I mean, that's going to be awesome. It's good for the NBA. But if anybody watched the game last night, we're going to get into it. It was a replication of what happened with the Knicks with the Celtics.
I watched the highlights of from the end of the fourth quarter.
I watched the entire game.
Wow.
And down to the very end of it. We'll talk about it more in the show. But, great basketball. Really good game. Little high scoring for an East Coast team, even though the game went into overtime. It was 138, 135, something like that.
Yeah, it's exactly
pretty high scoring. But, I don't know what happened. This Knicks team is just – and, again, they have their moments where they look so fluid, so much like that old 69 Knicks team, where the whole mantra of that 69 Knicks team was find the open man. We have 5 great players. Find the open man, whether it's Walt Frazier, Earl Monroe, Bill Bradley, Dave DeBusschere, or Willis Reed. If we move the ball and find the open man, now you're going to get it. All right, let me tell you something else that I learned from my mother-in-law as well. You look and you say, the oceans and the tides are moved, right? The water in the ocean gets moved by the moon. The tides are moved by the solar system upstairs. That's something in science that we've come to agree on, right? Well, that creates high and low tide. The human body, what I've learned to extrapolate from that is the human body is 80% water, which means at certain times you're going to have humans have high tide, and at other times you'll have humans that have low tide. And as a coach, you got to find your high tide guys that night, and you got to diminish and obscure your low tide guys that night. What happened with the Knicks is they're not allowing the tides to take over. There's too much ball control with Brunson right now. At the end of that game last night, he got double teamed and they wound up absolutely floundering and blowing that game with poor offense when you were getting trapped, but also free throw shooting at the end of it, Pete. Free throw shooting. So I don't know what happened with the Knicks. I mean, they knocked out the Celtics pretty good, but this Pacers team, I mean, it was like shades of Reggie Miller in there last night. I mean, it was bad, and we're going to talk about it in a bit. But I don't know.
WWE called it, by the way.
Say that again?
The WWE called this matchup on the Eastern semifinals because they had an angle where they brought in Tyrese Halliburton was favoring a wrestler, and they were in Madison Square Garden. Halliburton and Brunson got in the ring.
Wow. Gotta like that.
June 28th, 2024. So a year ago, they had it pegged.
Wow.
Triple H posted, it's almost like we wrote it.
It seems like they might have. Pete, it's the things that make you go, Now we said wrestling NBA, kind of like, well, now you're seeing it. But what I would like to also do, Pete, is I would like to circle up the 14% of people in the NBA that felt Tyrese Halliburton was the most overrated player in the NBA and never, ever asked their opinion again. Let's just put something on them and say, no, thank you. We appreciate it. Thanks a lot. The guy is a killer right now. He's a game winner and in different series now. At the Knicks last night, I thought it was a 3 when he hit it. We'll talk about it a little bit later. His foot was on the line. Thank God for the Knicks. When went into overtime, it still didn't matter. That Pacers team is diesel. Carlisle's coaching at a different level. Thibodeau did a great job last night, I thought, too. I really enjoyed that game because as a coach, I saw this ebb and flow of the game, too. That high tide and low tide, you'd go up. Nobody really up by 10 points or more during the game. Just a good back and forth. That's what people like about the NBA. I don't know why the NBA obscures that all season long. Pete, great job in Pete's Corner. Great, great job. All right, let's move on. The NBA, when you get this time of year also, you're going to run into some crazy, crazy trade rumors. Now, there's some crazy ones out there. A lot of them circle and swarm around the draft. Who has draft picks to move? The Brooklyn Nets have draft picks to move. Other teams have draft picks to move. Is there going to be some shakeup to the Celtics? Because a lot of people are talking about maybe Jaylen Brown, Derek White, combination of those two things, going over to the Mavericks for the number 1 pick, which would put Cooper Flagg in Boston. Okay, ooh. Cooper Flagg's originally from Maine. Bringing him home to New England would be a bonanza for the NBA. Leaving him in Dallas isn't going to hurt him, but bringing him home to Boston, it pencils him in as the next Larry Bird.
Well, and the Celtics need to dump a lot of salaries at this point, right?
They got to dump a lot. They got luxury tax problems. Yeah. They got huge, huge problems. They're selling the team because of that, and now new ownership's going to come in. And I wouldn't be surprised to see new ownership come in and want to clean out some of the people that put them in this position, because the only way the Celtics are profitable right now is if they go all the way. And that's no way you can build an NBA franchise that way. So it's just deleterious to the whole thing. You're going to have one good year, and then boom, you can't win it every year in the NBA. It's impossible. It's just too hard. And the injuries and the Achilles tendons now, because they're saying everybody's wearing low top shoes. So you're getting a lot more injuries to the Achilles and some of the lower extremities. I think that matters as well, too. So they're talking about Jaylen Brown being out of Boston in a lot of different fashions. The $50 million contract is an albatross around the team right now. It's also an albatross around his neck, because that's going to make him difficult to move as well. So we're going to see and keep an eye on that. Giannis out of Milwaukee. Everybody's saying that one. I don't see how that rectifies itself in Milwaukee. But you have to also, if you're Milwaukee, I'm going to put them on the word right now. I don't know who their general manager is. But if you're Milwaukee and you let Giannis Antetokounmpo go out the door, which to me right now is one of the bright faces of the NBA, you better get compensated. You better get something in return, because your team is hollowed out right now.
Yep.
The Bucks, they would be wise to trade Antetokounmpo right now for a bunch of other players that can come in and give them some stability right now, because right now the whole pressure's on him and it's not working. A lot of Kevin Durant action out there as well, Pete. I don't get it. I think his best days are gone.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Isn't it brighter days behind him?
I think they are. He's injured a lot. I mean, got injured in layup line with nobody even near him. I mean, those are signs. And if you're an NBA team that's about to plunk down $40 million, you better pay attention to those signs, because you can get 4 $10 million players in that instead, and you're going to have depth. You're going to have a lot of different things that aren't really going on in the NBA right now. One of the reasons the Pacers are doing what the Pacers are doing is because of their depth, because of their scoring their scoring movement. They don't have one guy who scores a ton of points every night. They come at 5, 6 guys in double figures every night. It's what the Cavaliers were doing, too, until they got roughed up. All right, Pete, I wanted to bring this up because we have GOAT discussions on this show all the time, and people really have cut this thing down to a binary where you either have Michael Jordan or you have LeBron James. And to be honest with you, I don't know if I would have LeBron James in my top 5 all time.
See, I would go boat, like best of their time or something like that.
Yeah. It
like
definitely,
Larry Bird, best of his time.
It's definitely temporal.
Yeah.
But then when you have to consider all of it, and we do on this thing from time to time, I don't know if I would have him in my top 5, and everybody has this down to a binary equation. Oh, it's a Michael or it's LeBron. Here's a stat line of the Big Dipper, okay? Wilt Chamberlain, the only guy in NBA history who has a quintuple double. Triple double is when you show up in a category, 3 different categories with double figures. Usually it's points, rebounds, and assists. Occasionally it can be blocks and steals depending on the other player. But those 3 categories generally are what constitutes a triple-double. Quadruple-double, you have to add in either blocks or steals. Quintuple-double, you got to have all 5 in there. All right, here you go, Pete. This is March 18th, 1968. I was only 8 years old. All right? But this is a quintuple double. I want you to hear this, folks, and then tell me that this young gentleman, Mr. Wilt Chamberlain, God rest his soul, doesn't belong in a conversation for the greatest of all time. 53 points, 32 rebounds, 24 blocks, 14 assists, and 11 steals. He averaged 48.5 points that game for that season, and he still, to this day, holds over 60 NBA records. 60.
Crazy.
Now, the 48.5 thing, that was a season in which he averaged 48.5 minutes. People say, how could you average over 48 minutes? Well, check Terrence Stansberry from Temple University, coached by John Chaney. I said, Coach, you never take Stansberry out of the game. When I met him one time, he goes, why would I? And so when you get over 48 points a game, that means you played all the minutes of overtime games too. So this is a gentleman who went and averaged over 48 minutes per game. When you got guys that say, I can't go back to back. I don't know how, I'm gonna have a load. I'm load managing. I'm gonna take a couple of days off here and there to try. 48.5. That was old school. People say, oh, well, he was playing against. They were killing him.
Yeah, they were beating the snot out of him.
Beating the daylights out of him.
Yeah.
And it was going on, and they were allowing it. He was just that good. All right, Pete, here's some payola for you. All right? So you're going to get yourselves a grip now, get an understanding, but did your money buy you anything? In the NBA, did you get something for your money? Because a couple of the teams that are still running right now, you're not going to hear their name. All right, the Suns, can you believe it? The Phoenix Suns didn't make the playoffs, and they have a $219 million payroll?
Oof.
There's your Boston Celtics in number 2, Pete. $201.6 million. And gave us $25 million signing bonus to Jaylen Brown for re-signing with his own team. Wolves, 199. I was surprised there. They're in 3rd place. The Bucks, 191, and most of that's tied up in guys that don't play every night. The Lakers, 190 million, in that range. Unbelievable. All right, Pete, we got all rookie team for you. We told you last week Stephen Castle was Rookie of the Year. And well-deserved. UConn Huskies are out there going crazy. He was very highly drafted, had a good year, and, he was one of the bright spots for the Spurs. Losing Wembanyama, losing their coach, really, really turned into be a bright spot for them. For the Grizzlies, drafted by the Spurs, Rookie of the Year. For the Grizzlies, you got our guy. You have two Grizzlies on the first team. Jalen Wells really had a great year out of Washington State. And our guy, Zach Edey, who we had as number one. Jalen Wells was drafted 39th overall. Get ready, folks. We're going to have our draft. We got some news for you. Zachary Resacher is also on the team, and Alex Sarr. They were the 1 and 2 last year. So your 1 and 2 got on the first team. And then your second team here is Kel'el Ware. Somebody in the zone told you last year was a much higher pick than he was. They took him 15th. We had him 11th, and we thought maybe he could go higher than 11th. Matas Bazelis on the second team. I really think he kind of should have made the first team there. I wasn't a big fan, but what I'm watching now I really like. Yves Missy from the Pelicans. Big, long shot blocker, defensive player. Another Husky on here off that championship run. Now, you know why they were as good as they were. The big man, Donovan Clingan, playing for the Blazers, had a very good year. And Bub Carrington of the Wizards closes out. So the Wizards have Alex Sarr on the first team, Bub Carrington on the second team. And the years before they had drafted Coulibaly. I'm going to give this young general managership down there and their whole organization. I'm going to give them they're drafting well, but it just hasn't shown up, And so at what point do we start to now filter in some of the real good veteran players that you might be able to get if you dump some of these draft picks that you have coming up? It might be important. Here's some guys from that draft last year that really didn't turn out. Reed Sheppard at number 3 didn't have a good year. Ron Holland, Cody Williams, and Rob Dillingham. Rob Dillingham got traded early on in it, and we were wondering why he was drafted so high, but then traded. Didn't even think that he was somewhere in the late first round, maybe, not exactly where they took him. All right, so let's go through what we got right now. NBA playoffs, here's where we're at. All right, you have the Thunder and the Timberwolves locked up in a series. You have the Knicks and the Pacers, aforementioned, locked up in a series. Both teams have played one game, all right? Now, the Thunder defeated the Nuggets 4-2 to get here. The Wolves whacked out the Warriors 4-1. Anthony Edwards was fabulous in that Warriors series. I think in this OKC series with the Thunder, he's going to have to do a little bit more than he did in Game 1. It was 114-88 with the Thunder taking out the Timberwolves. It wasn't even a game. Now, this is something I'm going to say to people that's because you're now into a situation where you're only going to have one game a night. It's going to go back and forth. They're going to alternate. It'll be Knicks and Pacers, or it'll be Thunder and Wolves, and they'll go back and forth one a night. When a game like that is so seriously uncompetitive from the very, very beginning, it's impossible to watch and enjoy. I was watching the game. I looked at it. I'm doing all sorts of stuff there, but then I start doing a crossword puzzle. Then I start flipping the channel. Then I start to put on some music because I just don't want to watch it anymore. About midway through the third quarter, that was obvious that the Wolves just didn't have it. Edwards got out with a little bit of an injury, but it was blowout basketball from the beginning, and that is terrible. The depth and balance of the Thunder and the depth and balance of the Pacers are why I think I kind of picked the Knicks and the Thunder to meet in the final, but after watching that Knicks game last night, the Knicks gave away Game 1. It's going to be tough. In Game 1, Anthony Edwards in this series was awful, minus 23 on an efficiency rating. Randall had a great first half, but then the Thunder really did a good job defending him in the second half. Naz Reid, here's their bench for the Wolves in this game. And if this continues, it's going to be a Swiffer. It's going to be a sweep. Naz Reid, 1 for 11, 0 for 7 off the bench. Dante DiVincenzo, Villanova, he didn't have the Pope bless him before the game, obviously. 3 for 14 and 3 of 12 from three-point range. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, 3 of 11, 2 of 9, all off the bench. Okay, so you got off the bench, they were 7 of 36, 5 of 28 from three-point range. If that continues, this is going to be quick. All right? OKC, they just lock it up with 4 guys in double figures, and they just come at you from all different angles. They're the number 1 organization in the NBA right now, and they're pointed that way as well. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was given the MVP. We don't agree with it. We don't agree with it here, and we're going to tell you why. But let's get through this Knicks-Pacers, and then we'll talk about that in another brief segment. Knicks and Pacers, again, 138-135. Tyrese Halliburton. Now, the Knicks blew. They were up by close to 15 points with 2.5 minutes to go. That's how bad it got. Okay, then Nesmith came into the game for the Pacers, and he absolutely lit them up. And then they come back, they're coming back. Knicks are missing free throws. Brunson's falling on the ground. Brunson's turning it over. The guys that they did get the ball out of the trap and moved it to the right spots didn't hit their shots. It was like they never saw a half-court trap before in their lives, and it was embarrassing, okay? It was just something that, it's a tale of blown leads in the Eastern Conference right now, a tale of blown leads. The Knicks got there by a 4-2 victory over the Celtics, and the Pacers absolutely crushed the Cavaliers 4-1. Pacers are on fire, folks, and if they get into a series, Tyrese Halliburton 6'7", 6'8", as a point guard. He's causing a lot of matchup problems for people. They're posting him up. They're running him all different series and segments, and he's shooting the ball at a very high clip. Okay? Very, very high-scoring affair. Again, shades of Reggie Miller. As the game was tied, I think Halliburton thought his shot was a 3-2 because he gave the choke signal that Reggie Miller gave to Spike Lee, who was sitting courtside. This also happened in Madison Square Garden, and it was just an unbelievable, epic playoff matchup. Brunson, bad shot Brunson, big shot Brunson. He's failing to recognize the traps that were coming at him, falling down when the traps came too many times, and free throws and layups are the difference between winning and losing every single time. Pete, I didn't send you our Dirty Dozen this week, but I got one. All right, we'll run through it. Okay, we saved Pete from carpal tunnel syndrome this week. All right, Jalen Brunson from the New York Knicks, definitely worthy, having a great year and a great playoff. And this is really like, you can see the toll on some of these guys' bodies right now. He's falling down a lot because his legs are shot. He's just out of it. And those guys get new sneakers every game, and the floor is their legs are shot right now. Some of these Knicks are just playing on vapor right now.
Need a little conditioning, I guess.
It's just, and again, it goes to depth. Are you getting your guys rest during the year? And if you go to that, if you ascribe to that theory, there's going to be some bumps along the way. Tyrese Halliburton with the Pacers, anybody who says he's overrated is crazy. He's in the top vibration of the whole NBA right now as far as great players. If you want to know why the Pacers are doing as well as they're doing right now, there's one reason, and it's Tyrese Halliburton. I wish he'd keep his old man back in the stands, but that's a whole nother story. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, MVP. Again, hats off. Great accomplishment. Great year. Leading record in the NBA for his team. Great stuff. But I don't know. When you see him and Joker's stuff side by side, I don't know how you did it. Karl Anthony Towns from the Knicks. He's laying off the three ball, and he is really asserting himself in the paint. And he's a problem. He's huge. He's big, and he's very skilled. Great hands. Good body positioning. Good footwork. I'd like to see him do a little bit more of that. I'd like to see the Knicks take a little bit more advantage of that. Julius Randle. Timberwolves been playing great. He's been carrying them really offensively, shooting the ball very well from the perimeter, but again, has yet to be in a defensive stance for the entire season. Pascal Siakam. Two reasons the Pacers are great. Siakam and Halliburton. They've got a whole lot of other good role players, but this is the 1-2 punch that they hit you with from the guard spot, from up front, and then he can go, their guard can go down low, and their big can come out. It's a very, very nice combination. Chet Holmgren from the Thunder overcame a big injury in the beginning of the year. 7'4". He's just big, and when Halliburton's doing his thing, he gets loose and dunks everything. He barely jumps when he dunks the basketball. Anthony Edwards from the Timberwolves. Terrible game one with a 23 minus efficiency, but this young man's one of the bright faces of the NBA, and I don't know if OKC's got him wrapped up, but I'd say you're going to see some fight out of him before it's over. OG Anunoby, been the defensive stopper for the Knicks in most of the series, but also really scoring the ball well from the outside for them right now. And then you got Aaron Nesmith from the Pacers, destroyed the Knicks last night. He's been great the entire playoff series, really, really good. We got Jalen Williams and we got Jaden McDaniel, the Thunder and the Timberwolves, two other guys still playing, still doing a great job, but there's just there's just a lot of good action going on right now on some of these teams, and I don't think it's what the NBA expected because their major markets are out of there. It'll be interesting to see what they look like when they come back with their TV ratings and how they did. The basketball's definitely been a little bit better, but I don't know that you can turn people off all year and then they're just going to turn you on come the playoffs. I think the gambling aspect keeps people more interested in the NBA than people think because they can go and get action on it, and it's going all the way now. Again, their playoff season's almost as long as their second half of the year right now. But the Pacers, big story. The Pacers break the Knicks' home court advantage. The Knicks had gone all year and really, really fought to keep that, but all of a sudden, bang, one game, overtime, 138, 135. Knicks are backpedaling. Ball movement versus ball domination. That's what's going on right here. If you're a coach, young coach, look at this right here because these are two of the models you'll be presented with. Ball domination or ball movement. To me, ball movement works every time. The Thunder, they have the ability to wear teams down. Like you're hanging around, and if you look up now in the third quarter, you're down by 20. You look up a little bit later, you're down by 30, and they're just punching you out every single way. They do their own thing, and they really do a great job of imposing their own will. SGA voted league MVP, and now we're going to give you the breakdown that we called for. And again, these are categories that are listed statistically. But again, let's go above and beyond the categories and talk about the success of your team. The Nuggets didn't have the same success, although I thought Joker was the real reason they had any success at all. Some of their other players had terrible, terrible seasons, and they also had some trades and some injuries. And bringing in the mercurial Russell Westbrook isn't everything it's built up to be, I think, with people. He's a very talented player, but he's mercurial, and he causes maybe as much headache sometimes as he does good. He doesn't shoot the ball great, but he hits big shots. You know, he doesn't play great defense all the time, but he's out there and hustle, and he's giving you a lot. So I think the Nuggets had their fill this year, but let's just go through the numbers. SGA, 32.7. He led the NBA in scoring. Great accomplishment. But then you got Joker in third place, 29.6. There's 3 points that separate them right there. 5.0 rebounds, which put Shai Gilgeous-Alexander 76th in the NBA. Joker, 12.7 rebounds. That makes him third. That's huge. That's 7.7 rebounds more per game. Okay, 6.4 assists. You would think this is where Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's going to get some of his money back. 14th in the league with that, but then Joker comes in 10.2 assists. All right, so 29.6, 12.7, 10.2. Averaged a triple-double. Here's what I'm going to say to you NBA people. Anybody who votes on this, anybody who averages a triple-double for the entire season is your MVP. Okay? 57% from the field goal range. 57.6. That's high. Ninth overall in the NBA. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander shooting the ball well, 51.9%. Now we get to three-point range, 37.5 for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. But then the Joker comes in at 41.7 on three-point shooting at 7 foot. 1.7 steals, another area where you think SGA might have advantage. Joker wins it with 1.8 on steals. Unbelievable. Now you get to turnovers, 2.4 for SGA, 3.3 for Joker, so SGA wins that. Out of all of our categories, you have the Joker wins 5, SGA wins 2. I think that the NBA, for a lot of different reasons, you know, they have hostility towards certain things, and I guess one of the hostilities they have is giving Joker 5 in a row because that's what really should have occurred. Joel Embiid a few years ago when Kendrick Perkins started flapping his gums about how unbelievable Joel Embiid was. Well, how's he doing now? You know, and now you got this guy who really should be 5-time winner in a row, absolutely held up at gunpoint by the NBA voters, if you ask me. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. It's not helping people think you're less fake than you are. It's not helping. Okay, Pete. I'm just trying to help. That was all
great.
Right. We got NCAA. We got some baselines, but we also have some grades for you. All right. And these are ESPN's grades. So we'll give them to you. and then we'll tell you where we agree, where we disagree, and that makes it easy for us. And then maybe we'll come back at another time, get into some conferences that they didn't cover, because what they're doing right now is they're covering the P4, okay? Notice how this thing went from P4 to from P5 to P4 really, really quick. How did that happen? I'll tell you how it happened. The Big East was told no football, no power. No football, no power. No matter how good your basketball program is, we're P4. Why is that significant? Because they're going to start their own commission. They're going to kick the NCAA out of college basketball and college football. And they're going to start their own commission with a CEO who will be in charge of enforcement. Now, we're going to break that down a little bit for you, but it's just right now. And Pete, give us your big sign there where all that money comes rolling out of the air. Because here's one for you, folks. This is why you're going to see the ACC distributed $45 million per school in 23-24, which means that number went up last year. That's why people want to see the young men get a cut. I'm all for them getting a cut. That ain't what's happening right now. They're getting a cut, and then somebody else is cutting down the nets when they buy the most players. It's just very, very deleterious to the whole thing, and nobody seems to be able to grasp a hold of it. And to be honest with you, this is the court that doesn't belong on this court. Okay? This shouldn't have been adjudicated in a court. All right? This could have been handled another way. But now you got all of these judges coming in who don't know anything about basketball, don't know anything about amateurism, don't know anything about the setup. They hear $45 million. Oh, my God. So NCAA president is open to President Trump forming a commission. Okay? If you remember last time when all of those wiretaps came out, all of that really, really, really bad information for basketball, for college basketball, the truth came out on those wiretaps. It was really, really bad. What was the first thing they did, Pete, after all that stuff came out?
Which stuff?
When all that stuff came out about these guys on wiretaps, they had DOJ dropping wiretaps on sneaker guys, on coaches, on assistant coaches, on everybody. No head coaches got bagged up in that whole thing, by the way. Just want to throw that out there right now. But what was the first thing they did? They formed a commission. Exactly, Pete. Who was on the commission? John Thompson III. And don't forget, they brought it, just to make it look beautiful, they brought in Condoleezza Rice. How can you question Condoleezza Rice? I know she wants to be commissioner of the NFL, but I don't know if she ever played basketball. But there was the commission. What came out of the commission?
I think she played college sports, Condoleezza Rice did.
Maybe. I hope so. But what came out of that commission? They had guys on wiretap saying, we need $100,000 for this player to sign with us. The sneaker company's got to give them the money. Sneaker company's like, well, we're like kind of out of money, and we're not sure that guy's worth $100,000. This is the same thing that's going on right now. Okay, except now it's out above board, quote unquote.
Yep.
Okay, but now they formed the commission right after that. What happened after that? You got the NIL. Nothing happened to those guys. A couple of assistant coaches got roughed up. A couple of guys on the perimeter got roughed up. A couple of the sneaker guys got a little bit of time. But at the end of the day, not one head coach who was orchestrating the whole thing had anything happen to him except for Will Wade, who got sent to McNeese State for $500,000 a year and is now back in the big time. It's unbelievable. People just shake their head. And then people go like, well, what's everybody so upset about? It's just like we live in Casablanca now, where they're so surprised at all the gambling. Jacques Vaughn will replace my man, Norman Roberts, on the staff at Kansas. Jacques Vaughn had been an NBA coach for a while and go way, way back when I was at Colgate, our first NCAA appearance. Jacques Vaughn was on that Kansas team, coached by Roy Williams, Rafe LaFrentz, Pollard, Ostertag, Jacques Vaughn. What a great team it was. Unbelievable. Kansas brings Jacques Vaughn home to replace the one and only Stormin' Norman Roberts, who has retired. We're going to have a boogie down in Gainesville, Pete. We're going to boogie down. Okay, what does that mean? Xavion Lee, the point guard from Princeton, one of the real portal potty pirates that everybody was after to get them to walk their plank. Well, now you got another guy right here, and that's Boogie. Boogie said, I'm going to look at the draft. When it came back to Boogie, that Boogie was going to go in the second round, Boogie said, I'm going to boogie. And when Boogie boogied, Boogie didn't boogie back to Arkansas. Boogie boogied down to Gainesville to go to the champions, to go to Florida, and now he's going to pair up with Xavion Lee for the cash, for the big payoff. But again, I don't believe that Calipari got muscled. I'm not going to believe that. I know Florida's got money. I know they can do what they do down there, but I don't believe that Calipari got muscled to that.
Something was a trade.
Boogie's on the boogie for a different reason.
There was a trade.
I think it might have been. Zakai Ziegler, aforementioned, he is now another one to sue the NCAA, but he's the first person to sue the NCAA that said, I played all 4 years and I want to play more. Most of these other...
But it's your, and he's right, because it's your amateur athletic availability, right? So if you're no longer amateur, the 4 years means squat.
Well,
it's to keep your amateur status, no?
Well, traditionally it went like there's 4 years of college. You'll go to a college to actually play your sports. And in that college, there'll be an understanding that within 4 years, possibly 5, if you were to get hurt, you should graduate and move on. Vacate that spot and let other people coming up into the mix, because these are finite spots, Pete. These aren't spots where you say, okay, I got 13 guys on a roster, I got 15 people on a roster. That's it. You can't say, well, I got 5 other guys and we're going to put them all in. You can't do it.
But NIL has negated amateur status.
It has. It has, but it hasn't negated the status that they can't operate this without the universities. They're not independent of the universities. They're operating in their arenas. They're operating, and every dollar spent to move all of these NIL guys around is university dollars. Those are the dollars being spent for all of this episode, charade, whatever it might be. But that's where all the dollars are going. And to be honest with you, you know, I think that you have to give the whole picture credence. I think we got into trouble this before when we had some of our gender issues with different competitions and different things going on outside of the gender that we had. And so rather than look at the whole totalitarian picture of it and saying, who else is being affected?
Nobody thought it through.
What are the ramifications of all of this?
Yeah.
That's what has to be on the prevalent mind of all of the people making these decisions right now.
Yep.
What about these young kids that are coming up into the game? How are you restraining their trade at the same moment this young man saying his trade is being restrained?
Yep.
His trade was not restrained. He got for 4 years, which was the agreement generally, that he would play for 4 years. Do you think they should just be able to go to college forever? How about a guy who has his diploma? Should he just get to stay?
There's plenty of colleges that'll keep taking your money.
No question. And keep paying them. And keep finding them and moving them around. It's just not healthy for the overall total picture of the thing.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but the Pandora's box they opened up with NIL negates all of that.
Right. And now the Cooper Flags of the world who might want to stick around, or the other guys who might want to stick around who normally would have been pros or going on, they're staying and they're creating a glut. All of the guys now like Zakai Ziegler, who can't get paid the $2 million he's getting from Tennessee, he wants to stick around because that's the highest number that he can get. That doesn't mean they're under the obligation to give it to him, although Tennessee might want to. See where this all is right now?
The only schools that actually have a hard out, a 4-year hard out, are the military academies.
Yeah.
Those are the only schools right now that have a hard out at 4 years.
It's also they're leaving military academies now and going to 4-year schools, getting NIL deals. I don't know how that's all happening when you sign on to be in the military for X amount of time. You take the education, you take all of the resource that they give you, and then you're required to pay it back at the end. I think there's an out clause there, obviously, but I I'm with you, Pete. I think it's crazy, but what I'm seeing are the looks on these young guys who I'm talking to on the phone who really don't want to go to Division III school. You know, they worked hard. They've given everything they have, just like these other guys did, but now their opportunities are not there. Zakai Ziegler is taking an opportunity from somebody when he already had his opportunity. Now, if people are telling me they should get to stay in school forever and do whatever they want forever, take this whole enterprise off of the college campuses then.
Yep.
Operate it like a G League and see how far you get. You won't get very far. The G League's folding up right now.
Yeah.
Did the NIL fold the G League up? I don't know. Larger conversation for a bigger scope of the day. But at the end of the day, what's happening now is it's a bowl of piranhas. That's all it is, a bowl of piranhas all eating each other alive. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Arizona and UCLA are going to play a game for Bill Walton's honor November 14th in the new Intuit Center. Nice. Arizona had Bill Walton's son on the staff. UCLA, obviously, where Bill Walton went to school. That's a pretty cool game, I think. Texas Tech locks up Grant McCasland 2030-2031. Now, I think this is like when you look at people out there and you say, man, I think people might be a little crazier than they used to, or there's something going on. Imagine saying 2030, 2031 in our lifetime, though. I was born in 1960. Imagine saying 2030. You know, we've really jumped into a future here. I'm not sure we were ready for it. All right, but he's locked up 20-30-31, 28-9 this year. Elite lost to Florida, and right now, in my picture, in my too early 25, top 25, I got to put Texas Tech right in the top. And if Darian Williams takes his name out of the NBA draft, which I think he should, he may not come back to Texas Tech. I think he should because they might win it all if they get him back, but they got a lot of talent on that team, and they're ready to roll whether he comes back or not. They bring back one of the best rosters. Okay, here's the new agency I'm talking about, Pete. College Sports Commission. It's a Power 4 handle. They're going to have a CEO of enforcement that they say will not come from within the game, will come from outside the game in some fashion. You're talking about the SEC, ACC, Big 10, and Big 12. Everybody else, get out the door. Bar the door, Nelly. Now, let's see if the basketball gets turned over to these football schools, non-football schools. Like, is the Big East going to be able to handle all of that?
I think we need to bring back Mills Lane.
Come in.
Think, and then the other guy who said, well, he had him on the ground and he's giving him the business, and 15-yard penalty. That ref, remember he threw the flag.
Yeah.
He said, it's a 15-yard roughing penalty. He had him down and he's roughing him. He's giving him the business. Well, that's what's happening to these lower-level schools right now. They're being given the business. All right, we got grades for you, Pete. This is ESPN, not mine. I'll give you some points where I might disagree. Okay, Big East, Creighton, an A. Little bounced out early for me to get an A, but I think they're looking at this in a regular season thing. But for me, I'm looking at it in a totalitarian thing. I'd give Creighton a B. St. John's A, absolutely no question. Patino in year 2 has him resurrected. Xavier, an A, I wouldn't do it. I give him a B at best. DePaul, a B. Are you crazy? They finished last. Now, I know they got better because they bought some games and they did a little bit of this, but they won one more game in the Big East than they did the previous year. That's not a B. I'm ready to go C-. Okay, Georgetown, B, no way. They're a C- also. They have Thomas Sorber going in the draft. They've had a lot of problems. This is Ed Cooley from Providence down to Georgetown. People wondered why he ever went. Providence hasn't been the same, and Georgetown ain't been the same. And one of the reasons for that is these Catholic schools have been really late to the NIL. They were slow-footed on the NIL. These big conglomerate schools ate them alive on that. Marquette got a C. I don't know. I'd give Marquette. They folded at the end of the year. But I like what Shaka's doing there. I'm going to give him a little bit of umbrage there. But a C, I might go C+, but not more. Connecticut, a C. I think with all the hype that surrounded them and everything that was going on, the way it all turned out, I think they get a better than C grade. I give them a B because they took Florida national champion right to the end. They had a good run in the NCAA. They were up and down a little bit, but I think that might have been due to expectations that were lofty and unattainable. You can't stay up forever.
Yeah.
Laws of gravity, folks. Villanova, a C? No way. You get your coach fired, it ain't a C. Okay? You got your coach bagged, it ain't a C. That's a D, maybe an F. Okay, Butler, D, I agree. Providence, D, absolutely. They haven't been the same since Cooley left, and they haven't grabbed this NIL thing by the tail either. Seton Hall, D, they go, oh my God, they don't have enough money. You know what? Get out and hustle. There's a ton of money in New Jersey. You're in the major market arena. Get out and hustle. If Pitino got himself a billionaire, go find yourself one. Big 12, BYU got an A. Okay, I can live with it. Houston, an A. And watch BYU next year. They're going to be loaded. Houston, an A, absolutely. They also gave Kelvin Sampson a new contract deal. Texas Tech, an A. Yeah, I think so. West Virginia, A. No way. No way. The guy stays for 1 year and jumps out the door, goes to Indiana, give them an A. No way. Then, and I don't even, they didn't make the NCAA tournament. I don't know how you're getting an A out of there. Arizona, B. I don't think so. With all the money, with all they got, I think they had a C year. Iowa State, B. Not the way they closed the end of the year. I'm going to go C. Oklahoma State, C. I don't know who figured that one out. That's a D for sure. TCU, C. UCF, they took Mikey Williams. They took a lot of other guys with problems. Didn't pan out. Mikey Williams, 5 points a game. I give him a D on that one because if you're going to take some risks, they got to pay, folks. All right, Arizona State, D. Bobby Hurley, gotta find it there. We gotta find a way. Baylor, D. Cincinnati, D. Kansas, D. This is bad. Cincinnati, D. One more D out of them, and that coach won't be there anymore. Bill Self, D. That's not going to be the standard that Kansas is used to as well. Kansas State, one of the biggest bags in the whole thing, gets a D. Colorado gets an F. I want to give Colorado a D because they lost 3 guys to the NBA. They lost 2 first-round draft picks and KJ Simpson as well. I mean, that's a hard thing to make up, especially at Colorado. And you got Deion Sanders over there. They're grabbing a lot of that NIL money that you might be able to grab too. So that's part of it as well. When you got football and basketball working at odds with each other, you're going to run into donor fatigue. Big Ten, Illinois gets an A. I don't know about that. They faded. They were young, but they faded at the end, and now they have 2 of their players in the NBA draft already. I don't see it. Maryland, an A. Okay, I can do it. They said they didn't have enough money. They didn't have this, but they did get a good run into the NCAA tournament and had a good showing. I think Julian Reese and Derek Queen will both be, a first and second round pick most likely. Michigan gets an A, absolutely. Took that team off the deck, revamped, reloaded, recalibrated, got an A, and really went up and won the Big Ten this year. Certainly an A, maybe an A+. Michigan State, don't bet against Izzo. Don't do it. Wisconsin, an A. They've been firing this guy since Moby Dick was a minnow. Greg Gard, he keeps going on guard and keeps fighting and stabbing and going at it. He's a fencer. On guard, he says, got an A. Northwestern, they gave him a B. I can see it. Tough job, really tough job. Oregon, B. They lost a bunch. They lost N'Faly Dante. They lost a bunch of guys to the NBA as well. But Dana Altman's legit, really legit. Okay, you got Purdue with a B. I'd give Purdue an A from what they lost. They lost a big fella, Zach Edey, and was still relevant, still going. And I like what they returned this year. UCLA B, all that whining from Mick Cronin about, we're going East Coast, West Coast. You didn't know that before you joined the Big Ten, big fella? All right, Minnesota gets a B. They deserve a D. No question. Nebraska, C. I don't know. Indiana, D. Should have been an F. Iowa, D. Okay. Ohio State, D. I don't know how they're feeling about hiring Diebler right now. Penn State, one of these basketball schools that's fallen and cannot get up. USC, a D. Musselman went from Arkansas out to USC. Got a little bit of that Hollywood vibe going. I don't know if they got that Hollywood money going. Rutgers gets an F, absolutely. You cannot have 2 guys slated to go in the top 6 picks in the NBA draft and not make the NIT or the NCAA. Sorry, absolute F, and I'm kind of surprised that their coaching staff survived that. Washington gets an F as well. Great Osa Bohr. Wasn't so great when you wound up in the bottom of the conference, although you paid big, big, big money. Pete, how much time I got?
Got about a minute.
A minute. I'm going to run through the ACC grades, and that's it. Boom. Clemson, A. Brownell, love them. Duke, A. Got to give Shire credit. They're reloading, but I want to see what happens next year. See if they can keep it rolling with the Boozer twins and being in an eternally young position. Georgia Tech, A. Are you kidding me? Who wrote this? Mrs. Stoudemire write this? The coach's mom write this? They're a C, maybe a D. Okay, Louisville, A, absolutely. Took that thing off the deck and rose it up top. I'd give them an A+ if I could. SMU, A, Andy Enfield, I'm going to give them a B. I didn't see enough. They had a good regular season, but then they folded. And then Stanford, A. I like Maxime Renard, though, as a draft pick. Keep him on a B. Florida State, B, absolutely not. No way. A whole lot of stuff going on there. Coach retires. No way. I give him a D. Virginia, they get a D. They have a B. I don't know what they're talking about with either one of those two. California gets a C. They're an F. Notre Dame gets a C. They're an F. Pittsburgh gets a C. They're an F. Syracuse gets a C. They're an F. Virginia Tech gets a C. They're really a D. Boston College a D. I'd give them an F, but who cares? North Carolina State, D. North Carolina, D. They're an F. Absolutely F. Wake Forest, D. Miami, F. Absolutely. Folks, that's all the time we have. We're out of it. We'll see you next week. And by next week, we'll give you a definitive date for our NBA draft, which takes place before the real NBA draft. Folks, we're lit up. We're in the zone. We'll see you next week.